I've also decided that I don't want to work now for a life later, which is the model that we're taught in the traditional workspace. Work for 50 years and then enjoy retirement for 10.
Introducing The Vixen Voice, a podcast for ambitious women entrepreneurs ready to move into their feminine essence, live their truth, and unlock their full potential. I'm your host, April Roberts, and each week I'll be interviewing inspiring women who decided to take a leap of faith to pursue their dream. Women who believe that they were born for something bigger. Hey there, just popping in quickly. It's April Roberts, and I wanted to thank you for being a loyal listener of the Vixen Voice. It means so much to me. And because of that, we're going to be popping in these little announcements because I want you to be the first to know what's going on at the Vixen Gathering. So if you haven't done so yet, click the link below and check out the Vixen Founders Collective. The members who are already in are raving, and we would love to have you join us in the ultimate business consulting, networking, and personal growth community for Gen X female founders. See you there. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Vixen Voice. I am so ready for our topic today because we are chatting about how working harder is not the key to success. I'm going to repeat that. How working harder is not the key to success. This is so timely because as we record this, I literally just posted a discussion in my Facebook group yesterday about how it breaks my heart that so many women turn away from ambition or what they really want because they feel they have to sacrifice things to get there. They feel that they have to work harder, sacrifice time for themselves, their family, their health, their sleep, etc. And I'm just here to say in today's world, that is not true. There's so much flexibility and opportunity. So I have amazing guests with us today who share this outlook on business and life. So we're going to be digging in. So if you felt that way, that you're holding yourself back a little bit, and let's be honest, we all hold ourselves back in some way, right? Please tune in today. So hopefully we can inspire you to find a smarter way, not a harder way to get where you want to go. So today I'm welcoming my guest, Sarah Kahn, and Sarah is a TEDx speaker, author, and the founder of Corporate Rehab Strategic Consulting. I love that name. She's a leadership architect and a business advisor to executives and entrepreneurs. So we're going to be digging in with her. And our second guest is Morgan Balavage. She's a business coach, and I love her specialty because I swear almost all of my clients are just undiagnosed. She works with ADHD entrepreneurs, especially coaches and healers. And here's the cool part. She helps them filter their million ideas into the ones that make the most impact and income. And I love that because most visionary entrepreneurs have this problem. So today we're going to be talking about it. So ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, I'm so excited to have y'all. You know, I have the privilege of interviewing hundreds of women a year on this podcast, and it's such an honor because there's so many areas of genius and uniqueness and diversity. And one thing I've come to realize is that we women are amazing, multifaceted creatures, and our life shapes us. So I'd love to start there, just chatting with y'all as female entrepreneurs. Sarah, we'll start with you if you don't mind. What's a pivotal story in either your life or your business that you feel really shaped like the woman and the businesswoman you are today?
Oh gosh, there are so many pivotal moments. The one that stands out the most. So I was in corporate for 20 plus years, and I was the consummate employee. Like, I was the unicorn. Everybody relied on me. Everybody loved having me on the team. I could fill any gaps. I could do anything that was required because I was raised with the mantra that the harder you work, the more opportunities you'll have. And there were so many opportunities that I coveted, but for one reason or another went to somebody else. And I always internalized it as, maybe I'm not qualified enough. Maybe I need another certification. Maybe I need another piece of training. Maybe I need to volunteer for more things. So that was pretty much my entire career, getting more education, getting more credentials, but losing out on opportunities. And when I became a mother, that's when it started to become a little more apparent to me that my value was tied to my performance. Because the moment I wasn't able to volunteer for something, the moment I wasn't able to stay late, or I had to leave early to pick up a sick kid, suddenly I stopped being the one everyone went to. And at first I thought it's because I'm not available. But when opportunities came up, I was not even being considered for them. So fast forward to 2020, I'm working my consultancy on the side. I'm still working full time. And we're in COVID. We're all working from home. And my boss basically said to me, if your kids are in the room, you're not really working. Despite the fact that I was attending all my meetings, making sure all my reports were on time, like everything was, I wasn't skipping out on anything. And I looked at her and I said, where do you want me to put them? We're all home right now. And the level of micromanagement that happened after that, despite the fact that I'd been in that particular job for 9 years, I was an associate director, like it was just insane. And that's when I realized, you know what, it doesn't matter how hard I work, I'm never going to be valuable enough because I can't do what they want me to do in the way they want me to do it. It was a real kind of eye-opener, and that's actually when I went full-time in my business and I haven't looked back.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's interesting as you were talking, and this isn't quite entrepreneurial based, but I owned my own business and since 2010. And so basically my best friend, I remember one time, this is crazy. We were younger and we were supposed to just like lay out by the pool at my place on Saturday. But as you know, as an entrepreneur, in order to do that, I had like scheduled my whole week. So I had these 4 hours with my best friend, right? And again, we were younger. And she calls me that morning. She's like, oh, I went out last night. I'm hungover. Can we do it another time? And I was like, no, we can't. And she was like, what? And I was like, look, I love you, but if you want to be my friend, like my time is very carefully architected. And when I set aside 4 hours, like this is like what I have, right? I've made a lot of sacrifice to be here. And she was like, okay. And then after that, like it never happened again. But fast forward a couple of years later and she had kids. And then she goes, remember that time you had a talk with me? I totally get it. So I love it. And now she's an entrepreneur with kids. So like, it's interesting, like mom and entrepreneurship, very similar. And then when you're both, holy cow, like bless you. So Morgan, I'd love to hear the same thing from you. You've had a unique trajectory as we all have, but I'd love to hear, what do you feel are some pivotal moments that like created this amazing woman we're chatting with today?
Mine happened about 9 years ago. I was having one of those biblical years where like everything was just dying in my life. Basically, I had a relationship end. I got laid off. I tore my ACL and had like multiple surgeries and a really long recovery. And it was this real wake up moment of, okay, well, now that you can't do anything, you don't have the job that you've had for the last 7 years, right? Similar to Sarah's story, I was like the jack of all trades, master of none, the go-to girl in the office until I was laid off. And with the biggest smile on my face, I was so happy about it. Like I was so ready, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And what I found was I had been moonlighting as a yoga teacher, just teaching after work. And that was really all that was lighting me up at that point. So once I was recovered enough from my surgeries to go back to teaching yoga, I decided I wanted to make a full-time gig of it. And so I hired a business coach, and I did really well as a private yoga teacher in Santa Barbara and around the world. And other yoga teachers noticed what I was doing, and they asked me to teach them. And so I became a business coach myself. And then it's just pivoted so many times to become the business coach I am today, which, as you said, is for ADHD entrepreneurs. If you're not pivoting, like, are you even an entrepreneur?
So it's so crazy. I spoke to a woman today who has like an amazing business. You know, she's been doing it for 8 years. She was like, honestly, I just got a job offer that I'm really excited about and considering. And I'm like, you know, and when you're an entrepreneur, you're like, I would never go back, but you never know what comes. Like we all have moments in our lives. And I just share that because I feel 2025 is such a transformative year. Like just things are opening up that you can't even imagine. I was just asked to be on the board of a charity, and I have a like no board policy. Like I don't do boards because I don't feel it's a great leverage of my time, but it's a cause I'm very passionate about, and I really care about the person who asked me. And I was like, I normally wouldn't consider this, but let's talk. I'm very honored that you're asking me because I want to see what kind of impact I can make there. So I just feel, I don't know, I feel this is a year to be open-minded, like what's coming, right? Sarah, I see the wheels turning. What are you thinking?
I've been sort of dabbling in entrepreneurship since around 2010, but I went full-time later. And I've seen everything. I've seen people do it part-time, people do it full-time, people shame other people for leaving it and going back to a traditional job. There's no shame. Like at the end of the day, as long as you're doing something that lights you up, or it doesn't even have to light you up. Maybe it's just paying the bills for now. Like your reason for going back to work or leaving work or anything in between is entirely your own. And I think one of the biggest disservices we do to each other as women is shaming each other for choices. I mean, we can insert whatever you want into like what we're being shamed about. But at the end of the day, if that is what you need to do right now to just kind of figure out who you are and where you want to be in life, go for it. Absolutely.
I love that. And it's interesting you say that because I do generally agree the shaming. I think it's just because I'm surrounded by such amazing women that's gone away in my life, right? Like being careful who you're around and who you serve and who you ask to serve you. But similar to Morgan, I got out of a relationship. I sold a business, like all this stuff. I had like ultimate freedom. And I was like, okay, I think I feel like leaving Houston for a while. I'd lived in Houston for 13 years building this business. So I moved to Nashville for 2 years on a whim, and I just came back to Houston. And it's so funny when people are like, oh, what made you come back? And I was like, oh, it was just time. And like the women have actually been like, cool, like, and I'm like, I'm super happy. Last night I was at a networking event and there was a gentleman there and he was asking me and he just couldn't wrap his head around the fact that it was just time for me to come back to Houston. It was really funny. So I think this is shifting in the world of women because I think women are wanting to go deeper and find their deeper purpose. Like we're purpose-driven creatures anyway. And so I think if you're shifting, like, yeah, be open and just be curious about why people do things and why you want to do things. So Morgan, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, it was interesting as she said that. I was thinking back to different relationships in my life that I have since abandoned, where I realized like this woman isn't rooting for me. And it's so devastating because it's somehow more of a betrayal than like a man betraying you because it's a soul sister, Why wouldn't she be rooting for me? And I think part of it is rooted in an envy and a jealousy and an intolerance where it's like we all want to be able to make all the choices and try everything, right? Maybe that's not true. Maybe some of us are so focused that they know exactly what they want to do and only that thing. But I think for a lot of women, we're told to have it all. And so, that lie that we can have it all. I like to say we can't have it all, just not all at once. You just can't have it all at the same time. And because we've been told we should be able to, be these like master manifestors of our own lives, and we see other women getting it and us not getting it, it inspires this envy. And of course, Rumi says healed envy is inspiration. And so as I've gotten older and more discerning in who I allow into my life, I've definitely noticed like the people I've surrounded myself with, especially the women, inspire me and are rooting me on and are there to validate me. And it's just such a gift. It's so empowering once you found that posse.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I have girlfriends and since I moved back here, I'm like heavily networking to reestablish. And my girlfriends will be out and they'll be like, oh, April does so-and-so, you need to hire her. And I'll be like, she does so-and-so, you need to hire her. And it's like so cool and so impactful, or like this person's amazing. And I just think collaboration of feminine energy is needed on planet Earth right now. Like we need to raise the feminine energy vibrations. And to be clear, I see y'all shaking your heads with me, but this topic triggers some people. We all have feminine and masculine. You call it yin and yang, and you can share, Morgan, from the yoga culture or what you call it. But the point is it needs to be balanced, right? And in Western society, we have tended toward the more masculine, analytical, linear energy, which, Sarah, is probably what you felt you couldn't match up to or chose not to match up to. Because honestly, we can. It's just going to burn us out because it's not a balance of where we should be, right? So what do you think, Sarah, when you shared, because you said what I couldn't be, but I think you could have, you were just smart enough to know that you didn't want to be. That's my take on it.
I think there's a little bit of, I mean, it's a very nuanced thing, right? I think when we get caught in the energy dynamics of like masculine, feminine, it's like you can only be one thing at one time. And I really do believe that you can channel both at the same time, right? In corporate, I was required to pull a little bit more of my masculine side, my, assertive side. When I think of feminine energy, it's the empathy, it's the compassion, it's the ability to collaborate and hold space for people. And you can do that and still be assertive, which is maybe holding boundaries. So I think that you can blend both together and you don't necessarily have to choose one or the other at any given moment. And I think this is one of the reasons why I really feel like it's important for us to embrace our unique personalities, because each of us has a very different blend of both energies at different times and in different spaces and in different situations, right? So you might be a little bit heavier on this side in this situation and a little bit heavier on this situation, and it fluctuates, and that's okay. But as long as you're open to both energies channeling through you, I think that it just creates such a much more powerful presence for you.
I agree. And I work with a lot of my clients on helping them transition between the two and balance the two. And once you learn that and you can harness them, it becomes extremely powerful. I love it. So let's dig into, we're speaking about this. I was on a marketing call the other day and it was all women, right? Talking about messaging, and they kept talking about bro marketing. So when I think of bro marketing, I think of hustle culture. And I know this is a big topic for you, Morgan. So I love you made a comment to me like that most people don't know what hustle culture is and who it benefits. So can you expand on that for us?
Yeah, so hustle culture is this idea that you can never have enough. You can never work hard enough. You always have to be doing, you always have to be producing something. You're always accountable to someone else, whether it's a boss or from an entrepreneurial perspective, this like moving goalpost of success, right? And the fact that like you can never have enough is where it becomes this kind of almost like Ouroboros, like snake eating its own tail. Like all that does is spiral you into burnout over time. And especially as you were talking about like masculine, feminine, yin and yang, like you have to be in a super masculine energy. And so you end up burning out those masculine parts of your body. And in the traditional medicine side of things, they study yin and yang as well. It's a big part of the medicine. And I studied it for 5 years, and it's still this very like almost poetic concept that I found. But one of the ways that we bring in more of the feminine is by embracing this anti-hustle culture, this idea that you have to be producing all of the time, and you focus more on when do I want to be productive? And what do I want that productivity to feel like? Do I want it to feel like this franticness, this like deadline driven, I have to get this done, I'm really stressed out about it? Or do I want it to feel like flow? Do I want it to feel like, I think of it like the spirit world, like just a muse whispering in my ear of like, okay, now do this, or now write this, or now reach out to this person. And so what I love about the work that I do is in my corporate world, I was an efficiency expert essentially. And so I get to bring that to my ADHD entrepreneurs, and I end up working with a lot of mothers who really don't have, all the time in the world, as you said, have to move heaven and hell to make space for anything new in their life. Yeah. So I'm like, if you can give me, an hour a week, I can tell you what to do to make money doing what you want to do, having the impact you want to have. If you have more than an hour a week, it's going to happen sooner. If you have less, it's going to take more time. And you have to be at peace with that. Patience is a big part of the entrepreneurial game. And I found the best way to practice patience is to celebrate every little thing that happens in your business. If you had 5 minutes to work on your business, you pat yourself on the back and you get yourself a little treat.
I love that. I'm a huge fan of celebrating wins, and I start every meeting with that and every coaching session. And I love to train my clients to do it every night. So it's like the last thing before they go to bed, because it also builds your confidence. Like it's a huge confidence booster. Thank you for that. So what I'd love to hear is, Sarah, you talked about the key is not working harder. So what is the key?
I have to co-sign everything that Morgan said, first of all, because we're like on the same wavelength with that. For me, I know you mentioned, Morgan, the idea of, we can have it all, just not at the same, like not all at once, right? I kind of had to shift that for me because I am very much like, if you give me something to do, I'm going to do it. I'm like very, right. And I've had to actually pull myself back from hustle culture a lot. So for me, it's, you can have it all, but do you want to? Like, I really had to shift that for me. And so weekly wins is definitely something I do to keep myself accountable to like the fact that you are actually progressing. But I love the idea of, I have a very operational brain. And so for me, it's like, however much time you have in the week, what are the absolute non-negotiable things you need to do that week to get to your specific goal? And if you're done, then you're done. One of the hardest things for me to kind of break the habit of was sitting at my desk from 8 till 4 every day. Because that's what I did in corporate. Whether I was productive, in air quotes, or not, I sat there because it felt like a full work day. And I ended up having to create almost a calculator for myself where I know I have X number of hours this week that I can spend on my business. So what does that actually look like in terms of marketing, admin, financial planning, like all of that stuff? Those are the key things I need to do each week. And this is how much time I'm allocating to them. That's it. And I've had to be really, really conscious of saying, you're done. You've made progress. Now go live your life. Because I've also decided that I don't want to work now for a life later, which is the model that we're taught in the traditional workspace. Work for 50 years and then enjoy retirement for 10. Like no, I want to enjoy my life now because I'm also at the age where, I'm losing people. They're getting on in age, they're getting sick. And I want to make sure that whatever time I have, I'm enjoying it now, not in some future date. So I've started to become very intentional about exactly what I'm doing and how much time I'm spending on it each week. And that's really helped.
Well, and there's also power in putting that structure into your schedule. I'm actually talking to a group of like 100 marketers next week about how you can actually be more creative when you structure your time, because same as you, like, and a lot of what you do as an entrepreneur is a creative endeavor. Like, you may not be painting artwork, but you're creating something, right? And a lot of times we want to think that creativity is the opposite of structure, but sometimes when you put structure to the creativity, you end up with a more powerful outcome. So I'm a huge fan of this, like structuring the calendar. So what were you going to share, Sarah?
The image that comes to mind, and I cannot remember for the life of me who shared this with me, otherwise I would credit them, but they talked about energy, like structure, like kind of like a river, right? Your structure is the riverbed. And your flow and your creativity is the water. And without that riverbed, it goes all over the place, right? So with that structure in place, the river current is much more powerful. And so that's how I view it in my own mind. It helps me kind of go, you know what? I can be in flow and I can be creative as long as I've got boundaries up. So I know that I'm not going to lose my time.
Yes, I love it. Morgan, hop in here.
Well, I was just thinking to myself about how with an ADHD brain, like the structure is so crucial and we also pathologically avoid it. Like, so it's that constant battle with your brain of like, I need routine. I cannot function without routine. I'm going to sabotage everything about this routine. But I was thinking about the neuroscience behind why that routine really works, because that's what I've had to do for my own brain is like feed it the science of like, this is why I need you to be this way. And it's like, how you can sleep train yourself? Like if you go to bed at the same time every night, your brain and, do everything the same, right? Have a routine building up to it. You start to build the brain synapses of like, oh, now I need to power down. And so when you set aside, every day or once a week, Monday, 9 to 12 p.m., over time, your brain will start to realize, oh, this is my creative time, right? This is my time to make my art, or this is my time to do whatever. And so when you bring that into a business side of things, I found, especially because I work with a lot of women and people with uteruses, you have to follow your own cycle, because there are some weeks where you just can't do the routine. And so you build that into your routine, right? Finding a way to have routine be flexible, bringing that yogic flexibility into routine works really well for neurodiverse brains that instantly want to like rebel against it.
Well, and I actually find the more structured my calendar is, the more flexible it is. Because to your point, I'm normally very hormonally balanced, but I had some issues this month. And I just woke up a couple of days like, ooh, I am not feeling good. But because I know exactly what I need to do and what's most important, it's easy for me to shift and say, okay, I'm going to give myself another hour, right? I'm just going to sit here and have a slow morning and drink coffee and like wake up to the world and like not rush. Whereas if you're not structured, your brain is like, oh my gosh, I'm late. What do I have to do? Blah, blah, blah. So I actually love the structure for flexibility. So how does that work in with like the work you do, Morgan?
So I teach my clients the yogic concept as Svadhyaya, which is self-study, which is just learning how to observe yourself for a period of time. Usually we talk about, at least 3 days, where you're just writing down everything you're doing, everything your brain is naturally inclined to do as you're doing it. So you're basically doing a time audit. And then you start to notice, okay, like, were you forcing yourself to do that? Was it hard to do that? Or were you really in flow? Is that really what you wanted to do right then? Whether it's like, doing your dishes or whether it's sending that email, making that pitch, working on that presentation. And once you start to learn that about yourself, and you really, the trick is just learning how to witness yourself, right? Learning how to feed those inner beings of like, okay, what do you want to do now? Learning how to have that conversation with your body. That leads to that deeper intuition. That makes it so much easier to connect with the people who are going to make your business explode. Because that's really what grows a business, is connection.
No, I love it. It's so funny. I have my clients audit themselves too, but I do it from the standpoint of energy, which you're also doing. I'm like, all week, write down everything that sucks your energy and everything that gives your energy. Like, when are you in flow? When are you like pushing through, right? And ideally, you want to outsource the things that suck your energy, although we can't outsource all of them, right? But we can be smart about where we plan them in the day or the week so that they don't hurt something that puts us into flow. But yeah, I love it. I do it with my clients. So, Sarah, I'm going to pivot on us a little bit here, but add to this conversation if you want, because I'm super curious. I'd love to hear what your dragon fire framework is, because I feel like it has to do with what we're talking about.
A little bit. So my Dragonfire framework it's a bespoke visibility and leadership system. I've been working with leaders for a very long time. I've been working with mom entrepreneurs for a very long time. And it's built to start everything with your foundation, because I think that that's really important. So no matter what your goal is, we have to have a solid foundation first. And that's usually based in my 5 capacities. What is your time capacity, energy capacity, resource, support, and money capacity? When we understand what your actual reality is right now, we can build a solid foundation that includes your values, your vision, your goals, all of that. That's the F, the fire. Then we ignite that. So now how do we take that and turn it into something that you do on a daily basis that is actually going to get you towards your goal? So we create a very simple but powerful, you can call it a system, you can call it a framework, you can call it whatever you want, that you can see, here are the milestones. Because I used to be a project manager in corporate. And so for me, it's very much like I need to know exactly what to do, when to do it, and how long it's going to take. And that's what I help my clients to see. And I think that that's important, because when we say, like, we like to put arbitrary numbers on things, 90 days, 6 months, 3 weeks, 10K in 10 days. And I think that the brain likes it a lot better when you can say, actually, based on your reality, this is how long it will probably take. So there isn't this constant, like, I'm falling behind, I'm not doing it fast enough. Look, they got there quicker than me. And then from there, we move on. So once you've achieved the cadence that you want and you've got your goal in line, now we figure out, okay, you've achieved this goal. How do we replicate that? How do we now take it onto, how do we scale, basically? And then there's constant evaluation. So it's a system that can be applied to literally any goal, but it's done from a very pragmatic perspective. And the reason that I'm so passionate about the pragmatism piece is because that's where the firepower is, right? I'm very much, we're not going to gaslight ourselves into thinking we're not doing it right or we're doing it quick enough. We have to understand that your reality is very different to my reality, but that doesn't mean we can't achieve the same thing if that's what we want. It's just the timeline's going to look a little bit different, and the activities you do are going to look a little bit different.
So it's so interesting because I do a similar structure capacity. I'm huge on capacity, right? And understanding your capacity. So I totally agree. but I actually use it to help my clients see how they can get to their target income, because a lot of times they haven't even reversed engineered and done the math and realized, well, if I actually fill my calendar, I'm already charging enough and I'm going to hit my target income. Like, they just haven't done the math to see, like, oh my gosh, this is totally doable. Okay, cool. And then I'm like, well, if the math doesn't equal the target, then we have to get creative, right? Like, what are we going to do? Then we go into creative problem solving if you want to keep that level. So I love that you're using it to help people set realistic goals, but at the same time, I find a lot of people short themselves because they haven't realistically understood what their capacity is, and they're imagining they need a greater capacity than they actually do to hit their goals.
Yeah. I mean, and it works in line with, really understanding if that is your goal, what are the actual activities you need to undertake to get to that? Because a lot of the time, like, let's be completely honest, shiny object syndrome is a thing, right? Because honestly, the work can be boring sometimes when you have to do it day after day. So our brains are always looking for things that are going to light it up. So it is capacity, but it's also understanding that you probably don't need to work as hard as you think you do. You probably don't need to do as much as you think you do to get where you want to go. So for me, it's like, you know what? These are my priorities. My kids right now, my priority. I do not sacrifice my time with them. So the goals that I have might take a little bit longer, but it doesn't mean I'm not going to get to them. So I'm very intentional about this is all I really need to do today, and that's it.
Yeah, it's so funny. I talk about shiny object syndrome all the time because if you know the Colby, I'm a 9 out of 10 quick starts. So I had to fix it for myself to not sabotage my own business. So that's what I help. And I like to call it bumper bowling, right? We're just putting the bumpers in. So the ball's going to go down the alley.
I think I'm like a 3 quick start. So
oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah, and I'm a 3-3, like due diligence and fact finding. I'm a 3-3, so we're probably opposites. It's funny, in my financial firm, I would hire people that were opposite of me because I'm like, we only have room for one of me in here. Like, we're in trouble if we have more than one of me. So, Morgan, I'd love for you to add your thoughts to our conversation.
Yeah, what Sarah was saying about essentially breaking down goals into tasks, which like makes it so much more possible, right? The big goal of like, oh, I want to write a book, or oh, I want to find a new job, or oh, I want to, meet my soulmate. It's just not tangible. But when you break it down into like, okay, well, what are you going to do today? It usually doesn't take that long, right? You don't have to sit in the office from 8 to 4, as it turns out. Which, if we're being honest, anyone who's working that 40-hour week, you're not working all those 40 hours if you're working an office job. It's just, there's not that much work to do. There just isn't. So yeah, and that's where getting deep into your intuition to understand, okay, well, what is it that I do have to do today? And what I love about my work is like my clients will reach their goals so much more quickly than they expected, as you two have experienced with your clients. And then they have to come up with new goals. They have to get bigger dreams. And that's just my favorite thing.
I love it. No, I can totally relate. Sarah, on this topic, you were talking about how charging your worth sometimes keeps people stuck and broke, and how value is different than your worth. So can we get into that topic?
oh yeah, there is a lot of rhetoric and a lot of spaces around charging your worth. And first of all, what it does is requires you to quantify your worth as a human being and quantify, how you feel about your worth as a human being. So I'm very much against it. I don't like the rhetoric at all. And I think that when it comes to things like pricing, there are, again, very pragmatic things you need to look at. The service that you're offering, the market value, what people are currently, like all of that stuff, your education, your training, that has to be considered. Just simply telling someone to charge their worth, it's not only misleading, but it can really damage your ability to sell your services, sell your product, whatever you're doing, at the price that it's actually worth. So what happens is if you just pick an arbitrary price, because honestly, if I'm going to charge my worth, I would be charging everybody $1 million an hour because I'm freaking phenomenal, right? But are you confident with that? Because if you're having to tell someone $1 million an hour, and I'm like, that just feels really uncomfortable. A, it's going to come through. People are going to question that. We automatically internalize it as personal rejection then when someone says no to that price. You're not looking at it from a pragmatic perspective of, do I need this service? What is it going to do for my business, et cetera, et cetera. So charging your worth, I think we should just take that completely out of the lexicon. And I think it should be charging the value of my service, charging the value of my expertise, charging the value of my experience, because that is easier to quantify than me as a person.
So it's interesting because a lot of times I get questions about what should I charge for this, or, oh, I'm doing market research. My caveat here is, yes, you should do your market research and you should understand the range. So for example, in coaching packages, like if it's a wellness or dating versus an ROI coaching, those are two different ranges, right? And you have to understand the difference. But a lot of times people just say, oh, this person's charging this, but they don't look deeper to see what that person's delivering for that price. And sometimes you're delivering twice the value and you're pricing yourself based on what the market says. And honestly, the market's lazy. And so if the market's lazy and you're not, it just takes a little deeper analysis, because I'm totally with you. But I think a lot of times people just do a surface analysis when they're looking at their pricing and they don't understand what actually goes in there, if that makes sense.
No, I 100% agree.
Yeah, especially like I like to compare when you pay for a college degree, you're not just paying for the hour with the TA that week, right? You're paying for the fact that this is going to, this knowledge is going to serve you for the rest of your life. So with that mind frame shift, it makes it easier to charge for, a lifetime of knowledge. And I like to suggest to my clients, like, what if you charge for your lifestyle, for what it really takes to take care of yourself so that you're able to do this work? Because it takes a lot of support to be able to do the work that we're going to do in this world. And that takes money.
Yeah, I love it. So I don't use the term charge your worth, but I tell my clients to own their worth, like understanding it. Because to your point, Morgan, I'm like, I need you to know hourly what you're bringing in based on this income, because you get paid that same amount to rest, to like enjoy your life. Because if you think about it, the best in the world at anything get paid to rest, right? Like you get paid to rest too. You get paid to enjoy your life. And so I love what Sarah's saying, that like, let's add a pragmatic aspect to it. And then let's combine it to like, okay, what's really going into this and what am I really adding? So I love this. Oh my gosh, this is a great conversation. I always believe in honoring your time. So I want to bring us home here. I want to ask before we hop, because I want to dig into some questions specifically to you as individual amazing women. But I'd love to ask on this topic, this idea of working harder is not the key to success. Like what kind of final pointers, tips, anything that our listeners could walk away with, even if it's one salient point they can walk away with and like implement ASAP? Like what would you share?
I would have to say, first and foremost, get really clear on your values and what you actually want. Is what you want truly what you want, or is it what you think you should want based on the company that you keep and the courses you're taking and, maybe even your upbringing? For the longest time, I was, very hung up on, this is the kind of house I have to have. This is the kind of car I need because my friends have it and my peers have it. And when I got it, I wasn't happy. And so for me, it was really kind of scaling it back and going, what actually do I want? Like, what's going to make me happy? Not, competing with the Joneses and what have you. So getting really clear on my values and then getting really, really clear on what my goal is and what I'm willing to sacrifice and not willing to sacrifice. And I think if you start there, everything else will fall into place. You'll find the systems and things that work for you, but you have to be really clear on what it is that you actually want first, what you're willing to do to sacrifice or not sacrifice to get it.
Yeah, I love it. Morgan.
The one takeaway is that everything you're doing is working. Everything you're doing is getting you closer to your goal, even if it doesn't make sense. Even if you're not, sitting in front of your computer 24/7, because who can do that? You never know where that next opportunity is going to be. So you have to trust that even the rest is getting you closer to your goal. Even getting yourself a massage is getting you closer to your business goals. You just don't know how the pieces are going to fit together. So if you follow your joy, you're going to reach your business goals and you're going to make more money than if you just work yourself to death.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much for that. So Morgan, since you're chatting, what I'd love to know is we talked about like feminine energy and getting into the flow of things, right? Stepping into that essence. What activities or when do you feel like you're most like in that flow?
I'm a big skier. So flying down a mountain really fast.
I love it.
Practicing yoga, of course, dancing, anything that moves my body, especially in nature, helps me get in flow.
I love it. And Sarah, how about you?
Weirdly, people usually see me as very much, the focused doer, but for me, what I have found is art. Drawing is honestly sketching, painting, drawing. It's the only thing in the world that will turn my brain off long enough for me not to think about what I'm doing. And I find that when I give myself time to put pen to paper, everything just flows so much easier after a good creative session like that.
That's so funny. I started painting when I was a litigator at the largest firm in Atlanta. And I would like sketch out the scene because I wanted to do kind of like landscape scenes. And I would sketch it out perfectly. And then the beauty to me was how it looked totally different when you finish painting it, right? And you always got in this moment of flow because I wasn't a trained painter, right? I was like, how do I do this fence with that shading? Or how do I do this brick floor? And something else comes in and takes over and you don't even know how you did it. And that was
3
like
hours
my
go
favorite. Yeah, every painting I could be like, that's where I got into the flow. Like, it's so cool. And it was just amazing. So I miss it. That's on my bucket list to start again this year. So thank you for bringing that up. I love it so much. All right. So Sarah, since we're with you, what color is your feminine essence or energy?
Red.
I knew it. I love your hair, by the way. It's so
Thank you.
nice and shiny. I was like, I love shiny hair.
Yeah, my spirit animal, whatever you want to call it, my Patronus, my red fire dragons. It's just something that has always appealed to me, which if you knew me as a child would shock the heck out of you. But yeah, red for sure.
It's the real you coming out.
It is. Yeah.
Love it. And Morgan, what color is your feminine essence?
I love a pink.
Very good. Yeah, mine's magenta, a little more purple than pink, but I feel it shifting. So I'm like waiting to see what comes up for me. So I think it's going to be a little softer for this next phase of my life. Not like fire pink, something a little lighter. But anyway, thank you so much for this amazing conversation today. I love that we have like our pragmatic Sarah, who's also a fire dragon, and Morgan, our yogi, who also puts structure into life. Like, this is a beautiful example of how we women are so multifaceted. I just think of us as like different jewels with all the different cuts, right? So I love it. That's why I love the color question. So thank you so much. Very quickly, if you're listening, obviously all the information is in the show notes, but if you're driving, here's the simplest thing to do. Go to vixengathering.com/podcast and subscribe, and all of the resources, all of the information about our amazing guests gets delivered to your inbox. So that's the easiest way to follow them and stay in touch. It happens magically, but super quickly, Sarah and Morgan, what is the best way for our listeners to follow you? So if they're not somewhere they can write a bunch of stuff, what can they easily remember?
You can find me on all the socials as corporate.rehab.
Nice. Love it.
And you can find me on Instagram at morgan.balavage.
Love it. All right, everyone. Well, as I always say, the world needs more love. So this week, how are you going to go forward and love yourself more and maybe do less of something that you don't need so that you can love yourself more? That's your challenge for the week. And for everyone listening, I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to hit subscribe so future episodes are automatically downloaded directly to your device. And if you want access to today's show notes, including links to all the resources we mentioned, visit vixengathering.com/podcast. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week for another episode of The Vixen Voice.